only mode.
Hello everyone, my name is Tom Martin. I'm with Altarian. Thank you for coming to our webinar. Today we're going to be talking about Communique for Amazon Seller Central. It's the business intelligence, analytics, and data mining to illustrate your Amazon sales. Webinar presenters today will be me, Tom Martin from Altarian. Roxanne cannot join us today. She sends her apologies. If you want to listen to what Roxanne had to say during her allotted time, you can go out to our website and look at our webinars. We already have 2 up here loaded from part 1 and part 2, where she gives a 10 or 15-minute discussion about the virtues of Communique for Seller Central and some of the challenges you face with accounting and things of that nature. So anyways, I spoke to Roxanne earlier. She sends her apologies, and okay, so let's start with our slide here. Use the questions tab to submit questions or communicate problems. We will conduct a Q&A at the end of the webinar. If using audio through GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar, for best results, close email, messenger, or any program which uses bandwidth. Today's presentation will be recorded, and as I just showed you on the web page, it'll be posted up there by tomorrow, and you should be able to see part 3. All right, let's talk about a data disclaimer here. We attempt to use real-world data, but because of a variety of different things, testing, demoing, that sort of thing, some data may not look 100% correct. I would just not really worry about that right now. So the basic idea is it's as real world as possible, but there could be some inconsistencies due to the fact we use this for demoing and that sort of thing. Okay, let's move on. All right, so today's agenda, we'll be talking about Communique for Amazon Seller Central. We'll be going over some dashboards, settlements, reconciliation, accounting, summary, and implications and things of that nature. Talk about the orders, buyers, products, FBA, plus a whole lot more. We're going to try and cover those fairly quickly because most of our previous webinars do talk about that in greater detail. What I'd like to show you during this webinar are a lot of the changes that we have incorporated from the first release to this one. And we'll spend a little bit more time on that. And at the end of all that, we'll take your questions and answer them as best we can. Okay, so let's get started. And let's go to Communique for Seller Central. So for those of you who've used Communique for Stone Edge, Communique for Mob, you're pretty well familiar with the look and feel and the layout of Communique. This is the dashboard for Communique for Seller Central. It works like all other dashboards we have. Simply go to Configure, pick the parameters you want to filter by, select Apply, there you go. Now what I just did here is switch from purchase to payment date. And as you can see, there was a pretty dramatic shift in the numbers. By the way, this is fairly real-world data coming down. We're using a data sync integrator with FBA to pull, with Amazon to pull down merchant FBA information. We'll go over this in greater detail. So essentially what it's doing is automatically syncing in with your Amazon Seller Central account, pulling the data down. We'll talk about this a little bit more later. So anyways, the reason why I want to make mention of this, because the difference between purchase and payment date is pretty significant. The reason being is because the order date is the purchase date, but it's not necessarily when an order is paid, and you don't get the order until it's paid. So it could happen that the order was taken yesterday but not paid today. And so the point being is that as you select these filters and ask these questions, you'll get different results. A little bit of an overview, our returns and adjustments, shipping summary, fulfillment summary, it's FBA versus merchant versus non-Amazon fulfilled. We have our buyer metrics here, repeat versus new buyers, average order value, product flow. These are your settlements, daily shipping, ship flow, top buyers, top products, top suppliers, and your workflows. That pretty much covers the dashboard. Across the top here, you'll find the various different reporting sections. We have buyers, geographical areas, all your orders, product info, suppliers. This is a dedicated FBA section. It's essentially very similar to the products, except the FBA section will filter specifically for FBA. A whole section here on settlements. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with our basic overview, which we've already done, our dashboards. And let's talk about a couple of different things we've got going on. What's new in this version is a preview of what we call multi-level drill down. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you that the original top buyers will list your top 25 or any option that you select here, 25%, or an actual number of 100, 50, whatever. You can even type in a value if you like. So what we've done is we've listed this here. Now what we've added and what we're previewing and something that we're going to do for the next release is we have what's called multi-level drill down. So we're going to click on display orders, display items, and we're going to search for the data. Now the reason why we do this is because if we're getting customers doing that aggregation and also pulling back orders and also pulling back items, that starts to slow down the performance of Communique considerably. So we put these in as options. So if you notice the little arrows that popped up over here, all you do is click on the arrow, and there you go. So now we've seen our top buyer with all their aggregate information here, and by clicking that open, we're now looking at the actual orders that comprise this particular person's values. We can come over here and click on this again. Now we're looking at the items. See how that works? So this is what we call our multi-level drill down. We have it only in this particular report for right now, but we'll be adding those to many others, or at least everywhere where it makes sense. So that's a new feature we added in for the buyer section, is basically the multi-level drill downs. Let's go and look at our orders. This is our Order Explorer, and let's look at payments today, all orders. So you can get a list of all orders that you had for a particular period. You can always open up the data pages and take a look. This is all of the order info. You also have your settlement and adjustment and reconciliation data here too. So let's go find one where we've had an actual settlement so you can see what that data looks like. Okay, so here you go. So let's look at, you know what, we can go up here to display and we can look at settled and settled ID. There you go. So this was settled on 3/25. The revenue from the settlement was $11.95. Fees you pay $446, and the net amount $749. And if you look over here, we also included all your revenue plus your fees. We calculate a gross margin for you, and you see what your actual margin percent is for each order. That's probably one of the most valuable things about Communique for Seller Central, is that you actually get to see your net gross margin after fees are accounted for. And also, too, we provide a lot of detail. Let's go to the Transactions tab right here, and these are all the settlement transactions. So as you see right here, you can see where your net settlement was $749, which we saw that back over here, $749, okay? And looking at transactions here, they match up. So we can look at price types, $11.95, which matches your sales. And there's no other revenue areas, so your total revenue is $11.95. And your total fees, fee type, $446. They match up, $446. So essentially what we're doing is we're pulling your orders in from Amazon. When the orders initially come in, we do and I'll show you. Let's go and look at today again based on payment. Okay, so we have no settlement for this order, but what we do is we estimate a fee, okay? Now there's no settlement ID, no settlement date, but the idea here basically is kind of give you what the estimated gross margin and margin percent is going to be. Once it's settled, you'll see a settle ID and a settle date, and that now becomes the actual fee. All right, so let's move on to another area. Let's look at product replenishment. And what this allows you to do is look at your stock and determine what your stocking level should be. For those of you using Stone Age or Mom, you're pretty familiar with our replenishment reports. And let's look at some of these right here. It's the top seller. So essentially what we're looking at is your current quantity total is 0, which means you're out of stock, both merchant and FBA. And by the way, we are downloading the active listings from Amazon. We are downloading the FBA fulfilled inventory from Amazon. So whatever quantity on hand you have at FBA, whatever quantity on hand you have listed up on your merchant site is here in this database as well. We download this information. Let me show you. Active listings every 90 minutes, FBA inventory every 120. We'll go into a little bit more detail about that later, but this is fairly accurate. And also, too, if you needed something more current, you can always, we'll talk about this too, request the latest. Okay, we have something going on here. Oh, active listings are going. Yep. Now it's being updated. Isn't that great? It's all being done automatically. In other words, the utility went out to Amazon, asked for the report, pull it down, it's now processing it. And we can come back over here and refresh to get the latest changes. So this particular item is still out of stock. Point being, though, is that it looks at what your sales velocity is. So quantity sold in the last 90 days, 331. Your daily sales factor, 3.719. Your lead times, and let me just show you here. Purchase orders, let's see, all POs. So this is a list of all purchase orders that have been issued for this. We take an average of the date issued and the date received. And for this particular item, the lead time is 3 days. The recommended order you should keep on hand for 30-day supply is 123. Your recommended level is 123. Your reorder point should be set to 12. So that's basically how this works. So let me just do a right mouse click, look at this, go back up to here. See, these are your supply days, how many days of supply you want to maintain, your forecast percent if you're anticipating increase or decrease sales, and then your lead days. By default, we're using 15. If we can't calculate actual purchase orders, then we use 15. If we can calculate the actual, then we'll use that too. So as you can see, there's a variety of different reports to help you to understand what's going on with your sales and your products. Let's look at one that's rather useful and important. This is your out of stock with sales. So what we did is we selected the default filters, last 30 days. We've applied that here. We have 407 products that are currently out of stock that have had sales in the last 30 days. We're looking at the on order. And let's see what we have here. This on order value here comes from your purchase orders. So we have 3 of them that are currently on order, so they'll get filled. It should be back in the stock, but the rest of them have not. So that's an indication that you have no POs issued. So if POs are not issued, you should think about doing that, especially if you had sales in the last 30 days and they're out of stock. As you know, selling on Amazon, if you're out of stock, you can't sell. Now, we talked about the FBA section. There's another report over here, very similar, out of stock with sales, but this only addresses your FBA warehouse. So in your FBA, we have 44 items that are currently out of stock that have had sales in the last 30 days. Again, your quantity in transit would represent roughly your on order. The equivalent, we keep track of that info. So you have 3 items here that are currently in transit and should be able to supply these products here. But the rest of them don't have anything in transit, so again, something you might want to take a look at. Now let's go back and look at our data pages for this particular item. There's some new stuff that we've added for this particular release. We've done a lot of work on the product section here. So we were talking about these quantities up here. So with the merchant fulfilled, we have the current quantity on hand, the quantity on order, and quantity pending. Now, pending would be basically orders that have been product that's been allocated to orders which haven't been approved or shipped yet. And the quantity on order is what's coming in from your supplier. With the FBA, we added in the quantity FBA, quantity in transit. We also have what's reserved, unsellable, inbound, and processing at FBA. This is data that's available with your FBA inventory report. Since we're getting that information, downloading that file, we've extended this down here to be able to include that. Some more information that's been added, or fields. We got listed date. That tells you that the item is, in fact, listed on FBA, or it's listed on the merchant fulfilled. We've added weight and unit. And then we've added estimated ship and estimated fee. So this would be where you would include your estimated shipping costs and your estimated fees if you're selling merchant. Now with FBA, there's typically not an estimated ship, but you can actually use that for any additional prep fees and things of that nature. And what this will do basically is calculate what your gross margin percent is. Now with the product section, we've also added image support. I'm going to switch to a different database so you can see what that looks like. Let's come over. Now this particular database doesn't have sales, but it does have product. So we're just going to select all of it, and there you go. So now we've added image support here. And we'll just come down over here, and we'll display image. There it is. So now you can add images to your products to make this a bit more useful than it already is. Just right mouse click, load, pull in the photo. We recommend that you use nothing larger than 250 by 250 pixels. In other words, 250 by 250 pixels, and it should be in JPEG format. It's the most compressed format that's ideally suited for this type of imaging. The other improvement we made with regard to images, we have a new view here called Card View. And look at that. So the Card View allows you to look at this in a little bit different perspective. You can open these nodes up for additional product info, look at quantities, quantity and price, or cost and pricing, and even the item description. Search, we've added some price and quantity on hand and COGS filtering. Like, for example, you could say, give me a list of all those that are merchant listed where the quantity on hand is greater than 0. Okay. Quantity on order, I'm sorry. We want quantity on hand. Well, that explains that. Now, that also brings up a good point, too. You got to understand the question you're asking so you understand the results that you're getting. There you go. So we got 105 products here that I have a quantity on hand greater than 0 that's merchant listed. So you can see you can also do the same thing for FBA. We've added product status thanks to Robert who made that suggestion. Essentially what that does, that determines whether or not the product is active or discontinued. I'm not sure how much use you're going to get out of that, but to know that you have an item that you've currently discontinued, it's no longer active, and whenever you sell out of the product, you probably won't be able to replenish. It's probably a useful bit of information to know. We've also added in another type called variation. We're going to be working on adding product variations to Communique for Seller Central. Essentially the same thing as parent SKUs. So the next release coming out will have support for that sort of thing. Okay, so let's talk about a couple other things. Yes, data integrations. All right. For those of you Stone Edge customers, we have included a data sync here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my other database. It's better suited for this sort of thing. Okay, here we go. So the data sync works for Stone Edge. You pick the database you have. For those of you who are using the standard or site license of Stone Edge, you would pick the local MS Access database, wherever that might reside. For you enterprise customers, you would pick the enterprise database at the local machine, and you would point this to that. What we're doing here is we're going to sync our products and calculate the on order from Stone Edge. We are going to pick in the PO, so basically any item that we have here in our database with Communique for Seller Central, we're going to look into Stone Edge and see if there's any related purchase orders and pull those in. Same thing is true with shipping records, and you can synchronize suppliers. And then we've added a new feature here called Stone Edge Updates for those who are interested. What this will allow you to do is push back quantity on hand from Communique for Seller Central back to Stone Edge. So if those of you who are using a variety of different tools to import your FBA orders, your FBA inventory, and you're having to go out to Amazon and download those files, well, with Communique for Seller Central, we're already doing that for you. So all you have to do is just say update inventory here, and it'll push that data back to Stone Edge. Now, for those using other order management systems, if we get enough people asking for it, we'll definitely address that. So those mom users out there, keep your fingers crossed. So that allows us to be able to synchronize cost information from Stone Edge for product. It'll synchronize your shipping tracking records, your purchase orders, your suppliers and their associations with the various different products, and also, lastly, push back quantity on hand to Stone Edge, particularly if you're interested in doing or syncing the FBA stuff. So now let's go ahead and talk about the Communique for Amazon Seller Central Integrator. We've already briefly mentioned this a couple times. Essentially, you would go out to your MWS account and generate your keys. You would put them here, and then you would set your different settings for whether or not you want to download the active listings. Now, what I would probably recommend that you do is to set this up to download both your active listings and your FBA fulfilled inventory. I wouldn't try to necessarily bring files or products from other inventory management systems unless those things are actually listed either Amazon Merchant or Amazon Fulfilled. There's no need in keeping product in here that you're not selling. So using the active listings will definitely bring down exactly what you have listed at Amazon. Plus, if you make any changes, you delete any product, add new product, this will pick that up and bring it down here. Same thing is true with FBA inventory. Whatever's listed to be sold will be pulled down. Now, the advantage to using these two particular reports is that it doesn't matter if the quantity on hand is 0 and it's out of stock. It'll always pull that down and update accordingly, so it's a big advantage. Now, there's some options here for both active listings and FBA inventory. We have an opportunity here to set some parameters. The interval now is set to 90. You can set that to almost any time you want. However, I should caution you, Amazon will throttle your account if you make too many requests. I mean, do you really need to know how much inventory you have every 15 minutes? You can always manually override this if you have to know right now how much is there. But the point being is that, you need to space this out, because if you don't, then, Amazon's going to throttle your account. You're not going to be able to get the stuff down when you need, meaning Amazon considers a near real-time report or real-time report every 15 minutes. So let's say you ask for your active listings, Amazon gives it to you, then you ask it again within 15 minutes, not quite 15 minutes, let's say it's 10, they're going to cancel your request by throttling your account, first off. Secondly, for every request that you make, Amazon is going to decrement your ability to ask for another report, meaning that you have 15 requests that they'll give you, some more, some less, depending on the type of report, and then it'll take you 1 minute to recoup that request. So if you were to ask for 15 reports all at one time, you would literally have to wait 15 more minutes before you got those 15 requests back. In other words, it'll replenish those requests once every minute. So you're kind of having to deal with this. So you have to kind of decide how soon do you really need the data. Fortunately, you're not processing orders through Communique for Seller Central, so having by-the-minute information is not quite as important. We're using this mostly for sales analysis, data mining, that sort of thing. So by spacing this out a bit, then you don't run into situations where you have to concern yourself with throttling. On FBA orders, we've got this set to every 60 minutes. Amazon considers real-time FBA reports to be every 30 minutes, not 15, like Merchant Fulfilled. One more subject to cover, basically, are your daily reports. For those reports which are daily, Amazon considers those reports to be up-to-date once every 4 hours. So if you run a daily report and then you try and run that same daily report before the 4-hour period is over with, they'll just cancel your report, but you'll still get dinged for the request. Now, the only report that we're running here, let's see, yeah, none of these reports that we're running here are daily, so we don't really have to worry about that. But, you do have to worry about the 15-minute time window and the 30-minute time window for FBA orders. So let's look at the FBA orders here. Essentially, we have a couple options to auto-run, so it's automatically running. We can also calculate add missing SKUs, so if you have a SKU that's in an order that's not in your active listings file, it will add that. But if you're downloading those, that generally should never really be an issue. We can calculate your estimated fees. As I told you before, when we import these orders, we can estimate what the fee is going to be. For FBA, we put it at 20. For regular merchant fulfilled orders, we put it at 15. And that way you'll kind of have a preview on what the fees are. We do download automatically your settlements. So when your settlements do are made available, you can't request these. Amazon schedules them for you automatically, and they are available when they're available. So there's really not much you can do about it except check periodically, and that's what we do. And so when a settlement is ready for download, we find it, we download it, we automatically process it, import it into Communique, and it's ready for you to review, and I'll show you that in just a minute. These are your updates. When updates for orders are made available, meaning you now have tracking information, status change, a few things like that, Amazon will post those. We do download that report and update the orders accordingly. Now this Communique for ASC Integrator is free. It comes with Communique for Seller Central, so it's not something you have to pay extra for. I mean, it's just a necessary feature that you really should have, so that this runs automatically in the background, downloads all the stuff for you, so that when you're ready to start processing and reviewing reports, you have near time, latest, greatest info. I mentioned the settlements, and we'll look at those imported the last 30 days. So here's a list of settlements that have been imported. Essentially, as I mentioned to you, the integrator will go out and grab those, process them, put them in here, and they're ready for you to review. If you're interested in doing your reconciliations, you just come over here, reconcile, and we're going to reconcile everything. And of the thousands and thousands and thousands of orders, we only have 35 that are out of balance. Not a bad deal. And, we can go through some of these reconciliations to show you, but, we have those already in other webinars, so we're not going to spend too much time on that. I will show you the accounting summary, which is a really huge benefit to Communique for Seller Central. As you know, these settlements will cross different accounting periods. At a particular month, it's kind of difficult to do that. But we make it very easy with the accounting summary because these are only transactions that settled for last month, which is the month of March. So it doesn't matter which settlement it came in. Like, for example, we're looking at this one right here versus, let's see how many, there you go, we got 3 settlements during this period. So the 3 settlements are covered during the month of March. The only transactions that we have here are those which were settled in the month of March. So any transactions that are in any one of these settlement files that may have settled in February or settled in April don't show up here. And then you can easily grab this. Nice little feature of Communique, type and then description, and then you can group these by those. So let me scroll up here and close this. So what we're looking at here is other type transactions, and within other type transactions we got a variety of different types of charges, like your FBA inventory reimbursement, customer returns, FBA inventory reimbursements, damaged warehouse, so on and so forth. So the accounting summary is a really, really useful tool. It'll help give more insight into your settlements, and it'll pull out a lot of detail for you that ordinarily you would not be aware of. Okay. So at this point, let's see what we have next. We've talked about the MWS integration, the settlements, accounting summary. Okay, so with this particular release, we did add a few new fee types. Excuse me. It seems that Amazon, particularly with FBA, is always coming up with new fee types. And we've added a couple to support our settlements. And let's go back to our slides here. All right, we've talked about synchronizing data. All right, customization. We do provide custom programming services. If you guys need any integration in with Amazon or things of that nature, we'd be glad to help. And let's go over here and talk about the roadmap. We mentioned briefly the variations, also known as parent SKUs. We're going to add in categories and brands, doing batch processing and updating data, meaning that for data processing intensive activities, like say for example you want to be able to assign all SKUs to a particular supplier. We'll put in batch update processing, things like that. We're going to try to add in some support eventually for purchase orders and supplier invoices. We are going to come out with an enterprise edition for those customers that have much more heavier data processing demands. And then we got a bigger question mark here about supporting other marketplaces and shopping carts. That's something we've talked about. Right now, this is basically Amazon-centric, but there's no reason why we couldn't expand this to include eBay and Overstock and places like that at some point in time. All right, availability and pricing. The product just got released yesterday, April 20th, so it is available now. The trial is available. It has limited functionality, but it's one of those things that you'll know immediately if this is right for you or not. The pricing, the standard license is $4.95 per single user, plus $95 for software assurance, which gives you a whole year of support. Now, I would recommend very highly, at least for the first year, that you do get this, because all the changes and things that we're going to do will come to you at no extra charge. If you don't get it, then they won't. Site license is $7.95 for multi-user. There's no limit, meaning that once you buy the site license, you can install as many workstations as you like, and the software assurance for that is $195. The enterprise license to be determined when available. And to learn more, you can contact sales@altarian.com, or you can visit our forum at communique.vbulletin.net. For QuickBooks assistance, you can contact Rox at consulting4qb.com. And now we can open this up to any questions you might have. Okay, so let's see what the questions are. All right, does anybody have any questions about what we've covered so far? Here we go. So the question is there any point to run Communique for StoneEdge and Communique for ASC? Well, yes, these are very different products. What I would say to you is this, that when you're dealing with the markets, they are basically item-centric, whereas when you're dealing with shopping carts, for example, they are order-centric. So there's a real different perspective, meaning that when orders are imported from markets in the things like StoneEdge and Mom, they kind of get transposed. And through the experience that we've had using those products with our reconciliation tools, you can never really quite reconcile it all, and you don't get the level of granularity and detail that you can. And our experience has been that oftentimes with products like StoneEdge and Mom, when you try and reconcile them, you have to do a lot more work than is needed if you use Communique for Seller Central. Plus, you also have all the fees that come in, and you're able to look at what the actual margins are, something that's very difficult to do with StoneEdge or even Mom. The other thing I would say, too, is that typically these products do not import your FBA orders because they're not really considered orders, so you're missing out on a huge swath of data. So you're not able to determine what your stocking level should be and things of that nature. So if you're doing a lot of business on Amazon, I would recommend Communique for Seller Central wholeheartedly. You'll find that using this tool will give you a lot more insight into your sales, your analytics, and things of that nature that you can't get right now. Okay, so the next question is, can we schedule a time to install? Of course we can. Send us an email at techsupport, TECHSUPPORT, @altarian.com. We'll be happy to do that. We have a lot of new features in this version, so for those of you who are existing customers, I would highly recommend you upgrade to the new version. Now, I will point something out to you. When you got your notice today, it asks you to read a certain statement on the download page. Please read that and pay attention to it, okay? All right, are there any other questions? Anyone has something they want to ask? Okay. Well, if there aren't any more questions, I want to thank everybody for attending today. We will be sending out email notices later today, let you know. Okay. Thank you very much for the kind words. Okay, we've got another question here. Okay, so the question is, do these import order from FBA to SCOM to StoneEdge and store on StoneEdge? No, it does not. You would not really want to do that. Now, for those of you who've done things like that with other tools out there, there are a lot of issues you have to deal with when you try and pull this into StoneEdge with regard to inventory allocation, issuing POs, and things of that nature. Okay. Now, one of the things that we were able to work out with a couple of merchants regarding FBA. I had one in particular I was talking to last week, and what they're going to do is they're going to do all their FBA through Communique for Seller Central. The reason why they want to do this is because there's a lot of manual work that they have to do in order to manage all of this in StoneEdge, and it becomes very problematic. You know, an example might be you have to issue an order for allocating inventory so you can ship it out to FBA. The problem is if you approve the order, that it shows up in the Communique reports and throws off your margins because you're not showing a profit. And so it becomes really tricky trying to deal with things like this, importing it into a product like StoneEdge that was never designed to work with FBA. So what wound up happening with this customer is that they had to have this order in there, not cancel it, because if they do cancel it, the inventory is reallocated back. So these are all the hoops they're having to jump through. So all they can do basically is let it sit there in pending mode. They can't approve it. They can't cancel it. And so there's a lot of these little gotchas you have to worry about when you're trying to put FBA in the StoneEdge. So getting back to my original customer, what we were able to devise for them is that they would continue to process their merchant fulfilled through StoneEdge. And then they would use Communique for Settle Central to pull in all their FBA orders so that they can do their product replenishment, do their sales analysis and all that good stuff without having to jump through all those hoops. And with the ASC integrator, it automatically pulls all that information down for them so they no longer have to go out to the Settle Central account and download that stuff. Okay? So I would say to you that you don't really need that in StoneEdge if you're using if you're already using that with Communique for Settle Central. And the next question is, but can you export to Excel and import to QuickBooks? Okay, so let me just show you. Okay, we'll go back to Communique. All right, so any report that you have here, any one that you run, we're looking at the accounting summary right now, you can always come up here and export to Excel, okay, anyone. So if you want all this in the data file, then you can do that, and we have different file types you can choose, CSV, text and tabs limited, word merge, XML, that sort of thing. So we can come back up here to one of the other reports we ran, settlement order reconciliation, or even the very first one, which is top buyers. Let's get our results here. They can all be exported, and you can do whatever you like. Now, speaking of QuickBooks, I was talking to Rox early on when we're doing this process here. At some point in time, we are going to integrate in with QuickBooks to allow you to be able to push out your journal entries directly. That way you don't have to worry about doing this stuff manually. But what she had told me was that with the ability to be able to look at this information like this, that you should be able to have no problem transposing this data from the accounting summary to journal entries in QuickBooks. So at this point, we opted to not integrate with QuickBooks and kind of push that down the road a little bit. But just to let you know, the QuickBooks integration is on the roadmap, and we are going to be looking at that right now. There was just a couple of things that we need to do, like, for example, the MWS integration, a couple of stuff like that, which had a higher priority. Okay, so any questions? Any more? You'd like to take them all? Well, if you have any questions and you think about it later, you're welcome to send them to tech support, TECHSUPPORT, @Altairion. I'll spell that for you, ALTAIREON.com. We'll be glad to answer them for you. And if you want to schedule a private demo and chit-chat a little bit about your particular needs and requirements, please feel free to contact us at sales, SALES, @Altairion, ALTAIREON.com, and we'd be more happy to schedule it for you. So if there are no more questions, I want to thank everybody for attending today. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and we hope to do business with you sometime soon. Thank you very much, and have a nice day.